While the cloud of a national sorrow rests on the sunset splendor of a great career, it cannot be without interest to turn to the dawn of that career and set down a few facts which have suddenly acquired the importance of history. The reputation of Charles Dickens began with Pickwick. His early sketches attracted attention and caused him to be spoken of in literary circles as a young man of singular promise. But it was with Pickwick that he took his position, a position which he held, in spite of all comers, to the day of his death. Everything respecting this work is therefore of moment, even its story, and it is with this farther than with the work itself that we propose to deal. A book which had the good fortune to make such a reputation, and to survive in public estimation 34 years, may be regarded as a sort of public character, and demands a biography. Here are a few materials toward it. The first ray of light which illumines the gloom, to quote Dickens on Dickens, out of which the Pickwick Papers emerged, is afforded by an advertisement which appeared in the Times of Saturday, March 26, 1836. As this was the earliest notification the public received of the boon about to be conferred on them, of the fountain of inexhaustible amusement and delight about to be unsealed, we will transcribe the modest announcement. It was in these terms: The Pickwick Papers, on the 31st of March, will be published, to be continued monthly, price 1 shilling, the first number of the posthumous papers of the Pickwick Club, containing a faithful record of the perambulations, perils, travels, adventures, and sporting transactions of the corresponding members. Edited by Boz, each monthly part embellished with 4 illustrations by Seymour, Chapman and Hall, 186 Strand, and of all booksellers. On the day in question the hardy annual put forth its first green leaves. Another generation has sprung up since that day. Many of the younger admirers of Dickens have never seen the Pickwick Papers in their original form, and it may therefore be worthwhile to note that the parts were identical in size and appearance with the author's latest work, the wrapper having of course its special design, which indicated, by the way, the first idea of the work, that of a series of sporting adventures undertaken by cockneys. This idea was determined by the circumstances out of which Pickwick originated. Seymour, the artist, was at that time very popular from having published some hundreds of prints in ridicule of cockney sportsmen, under the title of Sketches by Seymour. These were afterwards collected, and Peake, the dramatic author, wrote a book to them. No easy task from the variety of incidents presented, but he did his work well, dividing the book into 4 seasons, and then sorting out the cuts to suit them, fishing for summer, shooting for winter, and so forth. It then occurred to Messrs. Chapman and Hall that here was a vein which might be worked with advantage, and we all know the story of their applying to Charles Dickens, then beginning to be known from his sketches, to supply letterpress, which in a very short time threw the illustrations utterly into the shade. Poor Seymour's connection with the work was very brief. The wrapper was from his pencil, as also were the plates to number 1, 4 in number. They are well known. The first represents the club, illustrating the scene where the immortal Pickwick, in the height of his enthusiasm, mounted into a Windsor chair, on which he had been previously seated, and addressed the club himself had founded. What a study for an artist did that exciting scene present! The second plate represents Pickwick and his friends in a melee with a cabman. The third, Jingle's knowing dog Ponto looking up at the inscription, the gamekeeper has orders to shoot all dogs found in this enclosure. The fourth, Jingle's encounter with Dr. Slammer at the Bull Inn, Rochester, the town to which the author returned again and again with steady affection, making it the locality of scenes in his last as in his first work. In number 2 Seymour contributed 3 plates. There were only 3 in that number. Before the third number was published, a melancholy catastrophe had happened. Seymour had destroyed himself by blowing out his brains. The sudden loss of the artist put the author and the publishers to the greatest inconvenience. The work had achieved an immense success, had already taken a firm hold on the public, who anxiously awaited the appearance of each monthly installment, and now it seemed brought to a sudden close. To find another artist was no easy matter at that time, when the style of illustration was to an extent new. They however succeeded, and the current number appeared. It contained 2 plates only, and those executed in a very inferior style of art. We do not know who was the artist, but they professed to be drawn and etched by R.N. Buss. The difference in style between these and the preceding plates strikes the eye at once in turning over the early numbers. Buss evidently would not do. He received his conge, and in the next number, no. 4. The hand of a fresh artist is perceptible. There, again, are 2 illustrations. These plates are not signed, but are obviously by Hablot K. Brown, who as Phiz. soon became identified with Boz as the illustrator of his works. These details respecting the illustrations are of moment, in order that collectors may discriminate between the early copies which are already of different degrees of variety and value. In subsequent editions, the publishers took the opportunity of cancelling the 2 plates in number 3, and substituting 2 others by Phys. These were great improvements, but copies of the work with the Bus illustrations are valued for their rarity. Number 5 contained 2 plates signed Phys, that signature being thus used for the first time. Subsequently, the 2 plates in number 4 were altered, and the plates of numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8 have been slightly retouched, but no marked difference is brought out. The expectations entertained of the possible success of the work by its original projectors appear to have been modest in the extreme. We have it on the authority of Mr. Akard that he received the first order for binding Part 1, and that it was for 400 copies only. So small an order that he was able to execute it himself in one evening, after the workpeople had left. The demand greatly exceeded this scanty supply, but it was after the introduction of Sam Weller that the success of the work became unprecedented. It reached a sale of nearly 40,000 copies a month, and fairly took the country by storm. Nothing else was talked of, and the anxiety to discover the name of the new author who concealed himself under the odd nom de plume was universal, but only by slow degrees did it ooze out and become known to the world at large that Boz was Charles Dickens. His reception by the public moved the author to issue with number 10, in December 1836, a brief address, and as this does not appear in any edition of the work, not being intended to be bound up with it, we offer a copy as a relic or curiosity of literature. 10 months have now elapsed since the appearance of the first number of the Pickwick Papers. At the close of the year, and the conclusion of half his task, their author may perhaps, without any unwarrantable intrusion on the notice of the public, venture to say a few words of himself. He has long been desirous to embrace the first opportunity of announcing that it is his intention to adhere to his original pledge of confining this work to 20 numbers. He has every temptation to exceed the limits he first assigned to himself, that brilliant success, an enormous and increasing sale, the kindest notice, and the most extensive popularity can hold out. They are, one and all, sad temptations to an author. But he has determined to resist them. Firstly, because he wishes to keep the strictest faith with his readers, and, secondly, because he is most anxious that when the posthumous papers of the Pickwick Club form a complete work, the book may not have to contend against the heavy disadvantage of being prolonged beyond his original plan. For 10 months longer, then, if the author be permitted to retain his health and spirits, the Pickwick Papers will be issued in their present form, and will then be completed. By what fresh adventures they may be succeeded is no matter for present consideration. The author merely hints that he has strong reason to believe that the great variety of other documents still lie hidden in the repository from which these were taken, and that they may one day see the light. The novel was published in 19 issues over 20 months. The last was double length and cost 2 shillings, and in mourning for his sister-in-law Mary Hogarth, Dickens missed a deadline and consequently, there was no number issued in May 1837, while first appearing in book format that year.